Shabbat Shalom. There are at least two key dates to remember when it comes to the history of the State of Israel. One just passed this week, the 29th of November, Kaftat b'November. It's the day in 1947 that the UN General Assembly voted to partition Palestine and create two states, one Jewish, one Arab. It's an unbelievable moment of celebration, a critical step in fulfilling a dream that dates back thousands of years. The second key date is May 14th, 1948, at which time, of course, Ben-Gurion gathered the members of the provisional government in Tel Aviv and others right before Shabbat and declared statehood by reading the Declaration of Independence. You can go to Tel Aviv, you can sit in Independence Hall, you can listen to the recording, you can hear the crowd erupt into Hatikva, hear Rabbi Judah Fishman Maiman recite the Shehechianu. Two powerful moments in our history. And I want to suggest a third. It's a moment that captures just how uncertain, how fragile the decision was to declare a Jewish state. On May 12, 1948, Ben-Gurion gathered the People's Administration, the provisional government, in Tel Aviv. He was fully aware of all the risks in the moment. Military leaders told him the odds of withstanding an Arab invasion were 50-50. American leaders told his emissaries that should Israel go to war, America would not come to the aid of the Jewish people if they lost. He knew all of this, and yet Ben-Gurion believed that it was now or never for Jewish sovereignty. And on that date, May 12, 1948, 10 Jews sat in a room in Tel Aviv and made what Mordechai Ben-Tov, who was a member of the Jewish Agency's delegation to the UN, said was perhaps the most important decision in the history of the people, of the Jewish people, for 2,000 years, by the slimmest of margins, using all of his powers of persuasion. Ben-Gurion got the vote that he wanted. The People's Administration voted to declare the first sovereign state since Judea had fallen 2,000 years earlier, and the final tally was 6 in favor, 4 against. One vote determined the history of the Jewish people. And 2 days later, the State of Israel was declared. Ben-Gurion wasn't naive. He understood the risks of declaring a state. As Anita Shapiro writes in her biography of him, she was here last year in Dialogue, on that jubilant night when the state was declared, he again felt, as he had on November 29th, like a mourner among the joyful. Who more than he was aware of the magnitude of the risk he had taken? Only 3 years after World War II and the Holocaust, he took a gamble on the very existence of the Yishuv, the community that was living in Israel at the time. He did not share his fears, his feelings with anyone. Even in his diary, he noted tersely at 4 p.m., Jewish independence was declared and the state was established. Its fate is in the hands of the defense forces. Looking back, what was the source of Ben-Gurion's chutzpah? What gave him the confidence to believe that he could bring the Zionist dream to fruition when all the winds of the world pushed back hard against him? Delay the vote, people might say. We can't defeat the Arab armies. America won't have your back if you fail. Perhaps it was his belief that it is now or never. We have no place else to go. The door was cracked open, and we might never get this chance again. I want to suggest another possibility. There is a spirit that lives within the Jewish people that has allowed us to survive, that I have seen reawakened in the days since October 7th. And the roots of that spirit are found in the story of our patriarch Jacob. The patriarch we read about this morning, we read about him last week, we'll continue to read about him for a few more weeks. In last week's Torah reading, Parshat Vayetze, Jacob arrived at a well where he sees a group of shepherds sitting around waiting to give water to their sheep. And he's a bit confused. What are these people waiting for? And he asks them, "It's hot. Your sheep are thirsty. Why don't you just take the rock off the top of the well," which, by the way, was placed there to prevent strangers from stealing water. And they answered, "The rock is too heavy. Lo nuchal. We are not able to move this rock from its place. We have to wait for the rest of the shepherds who will come in a little bit, and we together will move the rock. The task is," they said, "just too great for us." At which point the text tells us, "Vayigash Yaakov vayagel et ha'even me'al pi ha'be'er." Jacob walked over, and he simply rolled the rock off the top of the well. Now, how did he do it? How did he do what it would normally take many shepherds to accomplish? Like any good story, lots of ways to understand it. One answer might be that Jacob just had superhuman strength. Seems unlikely, because earlier in the story we learn that Jacob was actually the stay-at-home type. His brother Esau, he was the hunter. He was the physical one. He was strong. Jacob was studious, bookish. So unless Jacob was secretly building his strength with push-ups and pull-ups in his free time, I suspect that the Torah is trying to teach us something different, something more than the importance of physical strength. And this is where the Midrash comes in and gives us another understanding. The well was not necessarily a physical well. It's a well that one preacher spoke about years ago. It's a well that represents all the gifts that live within us, all of our talents that are waiting to be expressed. And the rock symbolizes all the things that block our access to those inner and innate gifts, our unrealized, our untapped capabilities. It's true for all of us. We have skills, we have talents, we have potential. And the challenge, our rabbis teach, is to have the kind of inner strength to either roll away the rocks that block our wells like Jacob, or keep them covered like the shepherds. It's attitude that makes the difference. The shepherds believed they couldn't roll away the rock. Lo nuchal. We can't do it. It's impossible for us. We don't believe in ourselves. And that belief became their fate. Jacob believed that it was possible, and moving the rock became his destiny. So much so that we see this word again in this morning's Torah portion. After wrestling with the angel, we've talked about this. The angel says, "Vayar ki lo yacholo." The angel saw that he was unable to get the best of Jacob. Hear the word, yachol. It's the same word as lo tuchal, same root. They couldn't do it. The angel couldn't get the best of Jacob. Jacob would not give up. He didn't know. He didn't know how to give up. And then when God changes his name from Jacob to Israel, the text says, Ki sarita im Elohim ve'im anashim. You struggled with angels and with human beings. Va tu chal. Same word. You prevailed, which probably means you proved able. You didn't give up. You struggled. It's not in you to say, I can't. We think the essence of Israel means to struggle. That's what the word Israel means, to struggle with God. What I read in this text is that being part of Israel means there is no great task. There is no noble task that is impossible. Lo tuchal, we can't do it. Those words, that idea, it's not in our lexicon. Jacob's strength is a strength of spirit and of attitude. For thousands of years, we dreamed about returning to the promised land. We ritualized it. We oriented ourselves to the land. Herzl arrives on the scene, and he said, if you will it, it will not be a dream. It's not a dream. And if you think something is possible, the odds improve significantly that you can do it. And you'll take the risks to make it happen. When others were prepared to say, Lo nuchal, we can't do this, the odds are overwhelmingly against us, Ben-Gurion believed that this dream, captivating us since the fall of the Hasmonean dynasty, the story of Hanukkah thousands of years ago, that dream could come to fruition. It's now almost 2 months since October 7th, and things still seem bleak. It's easy to despair from what we see on social media, on our city streets, on the college campuses that our children attend, the isolation, the ongoing abandonment by people we believe to be our allies in any number of causes, the gnawing questions of how does this war end? What will victory look like? What happens the day after? Will the remaining hostages be freed? What's the road back physically, emotionally, psychologically for those who have been freed? If you heard my dialogue with Michael Koplow this past week, it was sobering, to say the least. We can imagine saying, Lo nuchal, we can't do this. It's too much. It's too overwhelming. And after that dialogue, I pulled a book off my shelf and reread an essay from Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik titled Fate and Destiny. He described how there are people who perceive themselves as victims of circumstances that cause their suffering, and they focus on the why question. Why did it happen? And theirs is an existence of fate. They look to blame the conditions that have led to pain and suffering. In contrast, those who experience an existence of destiny, they rise above the conditions of their suffering and instead ask, what does this moment call on me to do? Our patriarch Jacob, David Ben-Gurion, and so many others in our history, these were people of destiny. Where others saw immovable rocks, maybe even boulders, they saw pebbles. And they inspire each and every one of us to look to the future, because that's what people of destiny do, and ask ourselves, what does this moment call on me to do? The usual answers stand. You've heard us speak about them for weeks. Support Israel financially, advocate on behalf of the state, the Jewish people, contact your local elected officials, urging them to support Israel's right to defend itself and keep the plight of the hostages on their radar. Pray on behalf of the hostages, on the soldiers. Travel to Israel, as 45 members of our community will do on Sunday evening. All of these actions matter. Please continue to do all you are doing. And there's one more thing. Thursday evening is the first night of Hanukkah. This year, light the menorah and place it in your window for the world to see. It not only fulfills the mitzvah, the obligation of what's called Pirsumei Nisa, the publicizing of the miracle, it not only will bring much light to a world that feels awfully dark right now, it also says to all who walk by that especially in times like this, when the weight of all that is happening feels like a heavy rock thrust upon us, and we may want to shy away from public expressions of our Jewish identity, it reminds them that we are here, that we are Jews, and we are proud. It's a reminder to all that the task of the Jew is not to blend in, but to stand out. Ki sarita im Elohim v'im anashim. You struggled with angels and with human beings. Vatuchal. And you did not give up. You turned rocks into pebbles. That's what it is to be Israel. And that's what it means to be a Jew. Shabbat Shalom.